Okay, I seem to have some help from Ariel today. We'll see how that goes. I cut the outtake where I also had help from Brule. That was a little too much help. You know, there are fans out there who say they don't have any interest in what the coaches say because they just say the same things over and over again. I don't think they're listening, because there's some fascinating stuff out there. And we heard some of it this week. Now, the player interviews weren't as much fun, but that's okay. There'll be some information from Devin Carter at the end of the video, so please watch till the end. Don't go away. And before we get into all of that, please subscribe, click that thumbs up button, the notification bell, make comments, tell your friends. Those things all help me a lot, and I need every bit of it I can get. All right. Now, coaches, we heard from Matt Moore and Shadon Brown. Moore's interview started out kind of slow, but there's some hope. And, hey, he doesn't shy away from talking about what the players need and the fact that this is all theory. Today they were in full pads and hitting, but this interview was yesterday. But Moore is talking about can be. He thinks this line can be great. But he also says that last year they were only average or slightly above average. So he knows the situation. He's not blowing smoke. So maybe people should listen. Now, have a little bit of problems here. One of the things, and I know we got to get through this season, but he also pointed out how good he feels about the future because there are only 2 seniors on this team, and they have done some great recruiting. Now, some of the guys, when you're young, it takes usually 2-3 years before you're really ready to play as a starter on the offensive line in Power 5 football. And as we go through some of these players, that comes up time and time again. Need to get stronger, need to get bigger, need to fix this or that. And guess what? Even Lance Frazier, when he's talking about Frazier, it's like, yep, when with torque, moving a player side to side, Frazier's great because he learned it in wrestling. But he's also been too dependent on what he learned in wrestling. As a result, he still needs to improve his push. He doesn't knock the nose guard back. And sometimes it's not side to side. Sometimes you got to be able to blast and gain that foot, 2 feet. You got to win the power battles, not just the wrestling moves. And I would guess that Frazier is fully aware of that and working on it. He's not only good, he's smart. On the other hand, Wyatt Milam, he said Milam has depended more on his, overall athletic ability, but still needs to get stronger. Now let me see here. Yeah, his lower body says is good. It's the upper body that needs to get stronger and got to get better working with his hands. And when you imagine guys like Frazier and Milam getting better, that bodes well. Now you've got Nestor out at tackle, and that should help because Nestor's got that nice long body that you want for tackle, so he can get his hands on a speed rusher. But he also had to improve his lateral speed because you have to be able to get outside quickly because those edge rushers are coming fast. And that was the problem for Yates. Yates did not have the ability to get outside quickly, get his hands out there and push that speed rusher, that edge rusher, off to the side, make him take the long way at the very least. As a result, Yates is also doing better inside because he doesn't have that on his mind. You're not worrying about, getting to the outside when you're playing guard or center. So Nestor was supposed to start at tackle last year and did briefly for the Pitt game before injuries moved him back inside. But it's also possible he wasn't quite ready to play tackle last year because he didn't have the lateral speed quite up where it needed to be. That's something Nestor talked about at the media days. With some of the younger guys, was glad to hear about Katerinek. I was surprised he was not on the depth chart, so having him come up in the in the press conference was good. And it's mostly strength. He's big. He's gotten bigger. They like him a lot. But it takes time to build the quality and amount of strength that you need at this level. So he's still working on that. But one thing they like, he's smart. He can actually play all 5 positions on the line. So that is good for the future. Hamilton got great twitch, but he's lagging behind just because he hasn't been there long enough. But future. Williams, I didn't know that he didn't have a weight room at his high school for the last 2 years in high school. So he really didn't have some of the opportunity guys did. He's working on talent and size, but now he has the chance to really build, and he's got the people at WVU who know how to help him. Nick Cray has gone up from 245 when he came in to 297. He says he's got the coaches fired up. They like him a lot. Now, of course, we got Bryce Biggs. He's a late bloomer because he actually didn't start playing offensive line, until the last couple of years of high school. So the fact that he's coming on, learning fast, that's a good sign. Nick Malone can play both tackles. And that's the thing with the depth chart. You put together some of the comments that Moore made, some that Brown made, and you know that some of those depth chart ors aren't entirely what will happen under game conditions. Brown had said that he mentioned that depth chart listings are sometimes rewards, or it's a way to make a player feel good enough about where they are so they don't start talking about hitting the portal. And I think, having some of the guys like Williams listed, if something, if Nestor comes out, I don't think Williams goes in. It's more likely that Malone would take that tackle spot. He's primarily listed at left tackle, but he is at least your utility tackle guy. Now inside, Yates is probably your utility man who can move from guard to center. So even, though Livingston is listed number 2 on the depth chart, there's a good chance that Yates would be the guy who came in if Frazier needs some time off. But overall, the line is in good shape. Now, will they be better this year than last year? Yeah, they dang well should be better. How good? Well, Moore says they've got the chance to be great. But it's going to depend on them putting in the work, and just playing the games. Just because you can be great doesn't mean it happens. You got to make it happen. He knows that. The fans know that. And most importantly, the players know that. So I think that problem with right tackle that hurt last year has been corrected. That means they should be significantly better. It also looks like, I mean, we've got 3 all-conference guys on there now, but you worry what happens when they leave. Well, for the first time in many years, I don't think we have to worry, because there's guys ready to step up, or close enough to ready to step up, that when the time comes, we're not going to be just starting over. And that's, I mean, Moore made it clear that this year is the first year that they've really had the talent and depth. You know, I mean, people keep wanting to overlook, you know, they say, we have to replace Moore because he hasn't done anything. Well, he didn't have that much to work with. And when they got the players here to work with, it had, you know, you needed time to work with them. And the people who say, you know, the coaches can't develop the players. Well, crap, they've been developing the players. And that's why there have been some problems along the way. The players needed time to be developed. And don't give me this crap that guys like Frazier and Milam do it themselves. Had somebody who say, hey, you know, players either got it or they don't. And I say, well, if they don't got it, they don't get on the team to begin with. You have to have it before you are on a Power 5 team. But having it and developing it are 2 different things. And yes, a player has to work hard. They have to, you know, they're the ones who do the work. But the coaches help them with how to do the work. So don't tell me that Frazier developed because he's a good old West Virginia boy who's smart and knew what to do. The coaches have developed these players. It's why we have a good line that could be a great line, and it's why we have the potential to have a great line for years to come. Now, Shadon Brown, same situation in terms of depth. So it's the first year that they don't just have 2 guys who can start at corner. And if you only have 2 guys and you lose one, or as in the Pitt game, we lost 2 corners, you know, you lose 1, you lose 2, you're in serious trouble across the whole backfield. He says now we've got 5 guys who could start. And you're still seeing the media talk about the big problem in the backfield is the drop-off between the starters and their backups. Well, criminy, right now, it's so close we don't know who the starters are and the backups are. So don't tell me there's this massive drop-off. We've got 5 good corners. And we've got 5 corners who have had time. Now, Miller, Bishop, those guys did most of their physical development elsewhere. But, hey, people have been waiting for spells, and they've made it sound like he's been here forever and hasn't done anything yet. Well, hey, he was young. He's still young. Now, last year, he wasn't ready. He played. But like a lot of the other guys who had to play, he wasn't ready. They weren't ready. And part of it was just the physical aspect. Much like offensive linemen, defensive backs have to add strength and weight. And Brown pointed out that particularly with Spells, Andrew Wilson Lamp, these guys who were just plain thin, a stronger receiver could bump them off, go on their route, get open. Now they've put on weight, put on strength, and those receivers aren't going to find it as easy to knock them off the route. Or when fighting for the ball, these guys now have the strength to go one-on-one with these receivers. It makes a difference. So, Spells is ready. Miller is ready. Andrew Wilson Lamp. Malachi Ruffin, the great story of Malachi Ruffin, and dang it, if you want an example of the Mountaineer work ethic, it's Malachi Ruffin. Now, he may not go down in history as the most talented defensive back we've ever had, but nobody has worked harder or has a better story than Malachi Ruffin, who went for a literal walk-on. We're not talking preferred walk-on or even invited walk-on. We're talking a guy who showed up at tryouts and ran his way onto the team, literally. He's got like 4 or 5 speed. Now, he spent a couple of years just the scout team. Then Brown said, hey, man, your place is special teams. You want a shot at special teams. And Ruffin said, hey, I'm there. And he worked his way up to playing. And Brown told the story of the Baylor game, which I did not know. Because Ruffin had gone 2 or 3 weeks without any reps at corner in practice because he was playing all over the place. Well, he'd been getting his reps at safety. And then in the Baylor game, needed a corner. And Brown went to Ruffin. He said, you're in the game at corner. And Ruffin went in and played his heart out. Now, he's a guy who has made mistakes, but he is a guy who does not let his mistakes define him. He comes back and he plays harder, he plays better. So I hope Malachi Ruffin gets lots of playing time this year. Not because of injuries, but just because we need 5 guys who can come in and play, because we don't want to get into the second half and have somebody back there who's already had 65, 70 plays and runs out of gas for the last 2 series and the defense goes down and wins the game. We've seen it already. We don't need to see that again. But we've got the guys. Yeah. They're still cross-training. Guys are playing both, safety spots, corner spots, nickel, spear. They're playing different places. But now they're doing it on a more limited basis to get maximum quality on the field, instead of just out of desperation to have depth at the different spots. Man, that's a big difference. That's a big difference. Okay, one of the things, 2 more things there with Brown. Talking about Beanie Bishop, and will he start? Don't know. But one of the key things that they hoped for, but they didn't necessarily know would happen this fast, he's a leader. And I mean a big time, in-your-face leader when necessary. Brown calls him an alpha leader. And it was pretty much he walked in and he took the spot. That's what an alpha leader does. And it's not that we didn't have any leadership on the defense. We had young leadership and we had mostly quiet leadership. I mean, Sean Martin is never going to be an in-your-face kind of leader. Beanie Bishop is. Said, if a guy screws up, Bishop is on him. If Bishop screws up, hey, he admits he screwed up. He owns it. He fixes it. So that makes a big difference. Is that already you see some of the younger players gravitating towards Bishop. And also gravitating towards Wilson, but not because Wilson is in your face, but because he's the mental guy. He is the cerebral player. And you need those. But you need those guys during the week. You want guys to think leading up to the game and react during the game. You got Wilson, who will keep the guys thinking, have them in the film room, learning how to watch film. And you've got Bishop, who will straighten them out on the practice field, and I'm sure come the season, he will straighten them out on the field if need be. Hopefully it won't be needed very often, but we've got a guy who will say, hey, get it right. You got it wrong, get it right. And the thing that I'm sure you're going to love to hear, and we're getting it from the coaches, we're getting it from the players, aggressive. Gotta be aggressive. And we've known that about the defense for the last 2 or 3 years. Even when the defense was good, they weren't aggressive enough. That's one of the big reasons that the turnovers haven't been there. They wanted to be more aggressive last year. Injuries screwed that over. Now we've got the depth. We can be more aggressive because, hey, if injuries do happen, then some will. We've got guys who can come in and we can just keep playing. Don't have to change the whole defensive concept due to an injury. And can be aggressive all through the game right up to the last play because we've got guys we can keep subbing in all through the game so you don't have a guy like Burks playing 80 snaps. Yes, you want your best players on the field most of the time. You want guys who are maybe second best, but not by that much. You don't want the other team saying, hey, this guy's on the field, we're going to hit him. You want them to say, oh crap, we still got no place to go. And you want guys running as fast at the end of the game as they did at the beginning. Now we've got that chance. And the attitude for the defensive backs, every ball in the air is ours. That's what Brown is teaching. And he made it clear. Yes, you want guys who make the right play. You want guys who tackle. You want guys who stop the completion or who make the tackle as soon as the ball's caught. Think of Nick Troy Fortune. That was his game. He could tackle. He could control the number of receptions or the length of receptions. He did not make interceptions. He did not try to make interceptions. And Brown has made it clear, you can grade out at 100%. But if you aren't trying to make plays, if you aren't going for it, you're going to be standing beside me on the sidelines learning to coach. If a guy goes after the big play and misses, that's okay. You're not going to hit on every one of them. Now, of course, you don't want that to result in a touchdown, but you have to have the confidence, the willingness, and the skill to go for the big play, go for the interception, go for the strip. And if a guy is out there making the right play going for it at the right time, that guy is going to play. They're also tracking the number of attempted strips. Now, not just counting the strips, counting the interceptions, they're counting the attempted strips. And they go over that with the players. Who had the most attempts? Now, you say, if a guy gets past you and is running down the field, you're coming up from behind. Okay, yeah, you don't want that to happen, but it's now the opportunity for a strip, and you need to be going after that ball. I don't know how much they were telling players this in the past. I know they were not going for the strip often enough. But a lot of that was the whole safer psychology, because we didn't have the players. And this goes along with something that Coach Scott said about the offense. He said we now have the talent to take some risks. I think the same is true on defense. A lot of things were played safe on both sides of the ball because you didn't have the depth, you didn't have quite the right talent, you didn't have the versatility. That's in place now, both sides of the ball. Time to take the risk. And I know we've all wanted to see that on both sides of the ball. Some people kind of understood why it wasn't happening. Other people just got mad and blamed the coaches and said they don't want to listen to the coaches because they say the same thing every time. Well, okay, the coaches are saying we're going to be more aggressive. They said that last year, didn't happen. There's a reason why it didn't happen. It started happening those last 4 games. So there are reasons why things don't always happen exactly as the coaches say they want them to. The coaches don't rule the universe. You may or may not have realized that. But it's what the coaches are trying to do. They've put things in place to make it more possible, less dependent on 1 or 2 problems. That also goes along with something else that Brown talked about.